Welcome back, everyone, to StarLadder and iLeague Star Series. Hope you guys are enjoying yourselves on this glorious day. Oh yeah, Season 3. Sorry, my bad. I missed the end of that. So we've got 3 more matches to go for the day. We've already gone through 3 of them. The 2 first ones were lightning fast, and the third one was very amusing, at least towards the end. Now we've got Kolento versus StanCifka coming up, and I don't expect these players to slip up, all that much. They definitely are some of the stronger players in the scene. Kolento with a huge comeback, I think, this year, or at least since Ungoro. I think Ungoro's really been where he's shined the most in a long time competitively, has been brewing his own decks. The mid-range style of the metagame, at least the ability to play mid-range decks, definitely is right up his alley, and he's been performing extremely well across the board. In this event, not so much. StanCifka on the other side with a slightly different lineup he's one of the few players who have brought Purify Priest, which so far
we like to call and watch, right? We like to watch it to win because it's so just hilarious to see huge minions in this game that are suddenly just being built from combo pieces like puzzles, right? You just have this puzzle, this is like 20 HP, and this is like 20 attack if you have the 20 HP, and you just need to build it up on the board, and then you smash the face. And that's super hilarious to watch. Maybe not as hilarious to play against in that situation. But what I wanted to just also to say is about Kolento, that he was insanely salty yesterday after the game of RDU. He would actually tweet that, oh my god, the aggro decks are just watching the most boring action movie for X amount of times, repeatedly, and you always know how they end up. So,
but the thing is, he's not wrong. Aggro, it's not going to give you any time to do anything fancy. There's 2 extreme opposites, right? In the metagames that we've seen in the past, and in the current environment, it's also kind of true. When you have control decks facing off against each other, the game is extremely long, and there's a ton of random card generation. So people are generating cards through Elite, through Kabbalah's Tome, through Glyph. In the case of Priest, through stuff like Curious Glimmerroot, now that you see many of them, cards like Servant of Kalimos for a while, Stonehill Defender. Slow games generate a lot of random cards that generate value. Aggro games just say, nope, I don't want you to do any of that. I'm going to end the game super quick. And so you don't get to generate value. The problem is when you're Kolento and you're liking those mid-range decks, you like to be in the in-between, and you're just enjoying your games against control because it's a battle of resources and a battle of setups. But then you're against aggro, and you don't have those hyper anti-aggro tools available to you necessarily. So in those cases, it does become kind of annoying because he's playing a Shaman deck that got banned by RDU and that is built to beat aggro. The other decks, though, not so easy to tech against it. So I could see where he's coming from with that.
Well, at the same time, you can't really expect that a card game will not have an aggro deck. It has to be there, and it has to be powerful, because otherwise the game degenerates to the other spectrum. And we actually had a metagame like that for a brief weekend. It was in 2014 European Championships, and that was the championships when actually people from NA could participate in the European Championships if they would like to, because we had Reina, an example, play in the European Championships. And that was the metagame where everyone in Europe was playing control decks. And we had the longest ever stream. It was like 14 or 16 hours straight till 6 a.m. because everyone was playing control decks, and every single game was 2.5 hours. Live code was like 3.5. So it was horrible.
What you mean is that we're playing very skill-based decks with 0 RNG, and you didn't like it. Am I translating that right?
I feel like aggro decks actually have less amount of RNG.
Less RNG, I agree with you, but it's just the circle jerk. You got to join it sometimes and just get on board with what everybody's saying.
Do I?
Oh yeah, you have to. You got to make those YouTube videos and say that aggro is skill-less, brain-dead, and you hate it. You got to do it, man.
Which is super funny, because in a Wild, an example, Pirate Warrior is super powerful, so everyone can win with it, but to play it perfectly requires a lot of decision making. Because
it's actually much tougher even in Wild, because you've got tools like Ship's Cannon that make it a bit clunkier even.
And the synergies, you have to evaluate when do you just armor up instead of playing any minions, because that actually happens, and you sometimes don't play any single minion or even a card until turn 4. So It's a different deck in Wild, and people still call it brainless. I don't understand it. Like, you have less decision making in Jade Druid or Taunt Warrior than in Pyro Warrior. But okay.
Yeah, well, it is.
I digress.
That I was gonna say, like, that being said, the game's kind of started before we even got to talk about the lineup. StanCifka and Kolento's rogues are both banned. StanCifka's on Paladin, Rogue, Shaman, and Priest. So he's on Paladin, Shaman, and Priest, and Kolento with Druid, Paladin, and Shaman. So these two guys are both playing Paladin and Shaman. The difference is Kolento's on Druid and StanCifka's on Priest. I know this is going to sound weird, but Priest actually just eats Druid alive. So Kolento's going to have to nail a win with that Jade Druid before he ends up facing off against Purified Priest. Otherwise, he'll just get torn apart.
Yeah. And it's not looking great, to be honest. He has a very slow start. Like, those Jade Golems might look okay-ish, but it's still, like, going to fall apart, right?
Well, it depends on what the hand size looks like in a few turns, right? If the resources are exhausted, if Kolento picks up a Nourish, things can turn around pretty quickly. But when the Shaman starts going wide on the board is when you start running into issues. The earlier versions of Shaman were not that great against Jade Druid, but I think the return to mid-range Shaman and the way people are kind of refining it is increasing its power level overall. So even though mid-range Shaman is not technically favored, it's still pretty good.
Yeah, but this is a very peculiar situation. Do you opt for the Devolve here, or do you go for the Hex? The Devolve will give you most likely might even a 2-1 minion out of the 2-2 and a 3-2 out of the 3-3. So the Devolve didn't really look that great in that situation. So the Hex is understandable.
Devolve was okay. It was not a bad play, I think. It's just a little bit on the slower side for tempo purposes. Because you're leaving something probably that you can't stop with the Hot Spring Guardian. Because you have to account for the 5 cost body that comes out of Aya, and that's a huge threat. So you're gonna be playing like little minions into it, and then if they have a follow up like Jade Behemoth, for instance, then you're behind, and you can't really afford to be behind in that matchup.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. And you can still keep the Devolve for a final push. When your opponent is hiding behind a Primordial Drake and Behemoth, an example, right? Because that can actually happen. You will slow down at some point where you have more minions, but they can't attack because there are high attack value minions on the opponent's side, and then Devolve calls with the full swing.
Yeah, you can get the kill with Devolve. It's a good setup for lethal in that deck, too. I wonder if StanCifka's got enough AoE in the deck, because right now his board is looking extremely weak, as we can see. There is already another Jade that can be played here. I'm pretty sure it might be kept for the Auctioneer.
It's very tempting to actually keep it. Wow, a Shuffle! Okay, interesting.
He's got Innervates left. He's thinking, if I just draw any spell, if I draw a Nourish, I get the Auctioneer again. So 2 Nourishes. There's the Innervates, there's Earthen Scales. He can start cycling again soon. I might have been tempted to keep it myself, but he's thinking he's not going to pull the trigger on that anyway until about turn 9 or 10. Or 9 to 10 mana, that is. Because he wants to get maximum card draw out of it. And it looks like Kolento is going to be... He's going to be rewarded for that, because he picks up Wild Growth. And in 2 turns can start drawing... And I wouldn't say an infinite, but a near infinite amount of cards if he starts getting those Jade Idols out.
But that's in 2 turns. In 2
that's
turns,
enough, right?
Shaman can actually take over the game. Especially with that Malachite Totem that is looming in the hand.
Okay, if it's protected. I mean, you're 2 mana ahead of your opponent, right? That's a huge edge in the matchup.
True.
Which is, I think, why he's feeling so confident, waiting around and taking his time.
Okay, that's not bad. I wouldn't mind actually going for the Auctioneer right now, but at the same time, it's super tempting to have that additional card draw next turn and still have mana to use like a Wrath. Or in the case you get an Innervate, that'll just like a blessing, because then you can even play a Feral Rage, you can play a Swipe even on top of that, so pretty crucial.
I mean, Kolento's already out of the pain situation that he usually Druid finds themselves up against Shaman. This is why Jade Druid is so good against Shaman usually, is they're able to outscale the pace at which Jades are generated on the Shaman side very quickly. And the fact that they're always ahead on mana, on average with Jade Blossom and Wild Growth, makes it so they also have a very solid late game plan because they're floating a lot of mana. They draw a ton with the Auctioneer when those turns come around, and so they have an explosive board development. So while Shaman is expending resources to get that explosive board development, the Druid just naturally gets it through, Jade Idols, which is not something the Shaman can do, and that's a big difference in the late game stages of the matchup.
And look at what StanCifka actually picked up from the defender.
Alakir with the Flame Tongue is one of the... It's got to be one of the better cards you can get, right? Just in general.
Yeah.
Earth Elemental is not bad, but against Jades, I mean, really?
Holy moly, the draws. Where's the Innervate? Because that's what's needed. Nope. But still, very decent Auctioneer tip.
There's another Auctioneer in there, and you are forcing trades this turn. There's the possibility of Flame Tongue, trade up, trade, and then develop more onto this. The idea here is that you don't overload yourself by too much.
What I want to say.
So he can play Jade Claws because he's going to have 8 mana left over, and that's fine.
If you play double Flame Tongue Totems this turn, the Alakir might be very destructive next turn as well. You know that your opponent is low on answers on minions behind taunts. So... Can you actually tell me how much mana is Things from Below? Because
it's gonna be one. It's 4 right now, and it's gonna be 1 after he goes Flame Tongue, Hero Power. If he goes for Flame Tongue, Thing from Below, it's gonna cost him 2. It's gonna be floating a little bit, so he should probably Hero Power first, and then either play Flame Tongue, Thing from Below, or double Flame Tongue into Thing from Below. That's a very explosive turn, and it's liable to just make him run away with this game completely. Also picks up the Healing Totem, which is a huge deal. Gets to protect everything with Thing from Below if he wants to. I think we're going to see him do that. It sets up for a beautiful Alakir. This Alakir is going to be a 7/5 with Wind Fury and Divine Shield. Get your Jades out. I don't care.
Setup. I love this setup. It's really cool. Like with the double Flame Totem, you maximize the damage before you play Alakir, so you get double bonus out of both of those. That's insane when you think about it. Flame Totem is one of those cards that go under the radar when we think about Shaman, but it's one of the most powerful cards in the entire deck. It gives you so much synergy, and it gives you so much punch at the same time. It's incredible, and when you think about the deck, it's just like, yeah, well, Fire Elemental, Kalimos, and Golems in general, Aya, Jade Lightning, and then after some time you say Flame Totem, when in reality, Flame Totem is even more impactful than any other of those cards.
It is probably the sole reason why Shaman's so good at taking the board, actually. Cleaning up the board is not enough. You need to be able to trade and use those bodies. Like, getting extra 0/2s is cute, but if you don't have something like Flame Tongue to make them better, then they usually don't accomplish all that much. And now we could see... Am I looking at a lethal here? Trade. That's 7, 21, 25. Not lethal. He's going to be a little bit off. But it's close enough at this point. The issue is, do you need to kill the 8/8? Do you need to play the devolve game here? Like, do you need to hex? Because you can still wait an extra turn, technically.
If you devolve, you can't Alakir this turn, and that's kind of sad, right? So, Alakir here can just kill the 6/6 Golem, ignore the 8/8. I mean, you attack first, of course, into the Dark Reaper, right? But then you deal 6 damage to the face, maybe 9. That's 15 with the second attack of the Alakir. Your opponent is left with 2 minions, and that's fine. You will lose one Flame Totem next turn.
Do you even have to? Because you can take the value trade to make sure you don't lose it on paper. If you just take the value trade, the Healing Totem heals up your Thing from Below. You're out of swipe range.
That's the best possible play, yeah.
And suddenly...
Well, this is awkward.
Kolento needed those Jade Idols earlier, honestly. If that Gaddison Auctioneer had drawn the Jades faster, Kolento might currently be ahead.
You need better APM then. And faster animations. I'm 100% sure that was needed instead of, just better cards. Alright, well, it looks awful for Kolento. I don't know what he has in his hand, but I can't really pick up anything from his deck that will help immensely here. Maybe just Jade Behemoth. Primordial Drake doesn't really do much anyway. What's that? Swipe. Okay.
That was a good draw. He's got the Fell Rage after that, so that's going to make him take 7, but then he stabilizes in the only way that I think he had available to him at this point. Remove the most damage on board with the Flame Tongue, which if shifted properly can be devastating. And now StanCifka is facing down a Druid with 0 cards in hand. And he's got 2 Jade Generators, a Hex, a Board Clear, basically everything he could ever ask for. If Kolento finds some way to come back from this, I'll be very surprised. It seems like it's just a locked game.
A Blood Imp. All right.
Another one.
It's actually not bad as well.
Yeah.
Well, the fact that he has still the Evolve and Hex in his hand is just such a power tool right now. Kolento needs to hit Nourish out of the top of the deck right now.
He needs Nourish into like 2 Jade Idols or something ridiculous. He needs Nourish into a Swipe, into a Jade Idols. He needs something ridiculous to salvage this. And StanCifka can Hex now if he wants to go for tempo. He's going to choose to take the damage instead. But now Healing Totem did not trigger, and that means the Jinyu is vulnerable to a Swipe. Is there a second Swipe in the deck? Because if there is... Oh, goodness! That draw!
Wow.
Maybe that's what Kolento was banking on, and what StanCifka did not want to play around.
Interesting. Still,
yeah, that's probably the reason he didn't care about the Healing Totem.
Yeah, but still, Kolento is not really in a good spot. Like the fact that he still is facing a 5/5 minion and the potential of multiple totems in the coming turns is really just something that Druid will struggle on. Oh my god, yeah, the innovates are coming in the best possible timing.
I could pick up the Auctioneer and make this a little bit better, but he's going to need the Auctioneer right now, because right now he's about to take 9 damage straight up, and he's going to be dead to the Fire Elemental. 3 damage to the face is going to conclude the damage needed by StanCifka, and that's going to give him game number 1. And the Jade Druid, once again, not delivering.
It really feels for me that the Druid never wins.
Unless it's aggro, then it does
yeah, unless
very
it's
well.
aggro, but when it's Jade Druid, it just feels like in this tournament it just doesn't pair well against anything in the field. It would be decent against Freeze Mages because it generates just million amount of armor, and against mid-range, Burn Mages, right? That's what we're gonna call them because they have Mana Worms and Archanologist.
Yep.
Medivh's Valet, so it's also aggro, but at the same time, it just goes to the late game. I would say Jade Druid is very decent against that deck, but usually players ban it when they have too many matchups that are too good for Jade Druid, and then Jade Druid is just left with his horrible matchups, and we can see it being exploited. The Purify Priest is the single best deck against Jade Druid, right?
It is I think it is. From personal experience, I think it is. I don't think I've seen it lose very often. The few times where it's happened is when the Druid has, very specific answers. Double Fell Rage early with a Swipe to deal with the Razor Maw and the Ancient Watchers. Those are the games where things escalate, and the Druid needs to have the ramp on top of that with Jade Generators. And Kolento's got a hand that can actually beat this. This is the type of hand that leads you to victories. If the opponent is not drawing very quickly into the Razor Leaves, the ability to get Jade Blossom with the double Jade Spirit, with the Jade Behemoth, oftentimes is enough to put you ahead. It's not a given, but he's got a hand that could have done it. Well, maybe less so now.
When you have a cleric that has 1/5 HP and can draw 1 card at least that turn, it doesn't look really promising to use that Jade Golem, right? Especially when StanCifka can now take a huge advantage out of this hero power. Holy moly, there's so much card draw. And the potential is still there. 1/5, it's so hard to remove for Kolento. Look at this.
He's gonna have to play the Jade Spirit just to lower the health of the clerics to then kill them off with Swipe.
And StanCifka still will get value. He can
Oh
kill
yeah, he
Jade
is.
Golem.
Oh, we can make
Yeah,
a 10-10 now. How do you
yeah,
feel?
exactly. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Actually, more than that. We can make a 14-14. How do you feel?
I feel like that's a very decent minion
Yeah.
against druids in general, and so I feel like it's a good choice. It's a good choice. I would say it's a good choice.
It's pretty good against everything, but it's particularly good against Jade Druid. All right, Kolento, pack your bags. This is
You're going home. I mean, this game, because this is not gonna end well. The 14 goes to face. I don't see any time it just connects to anything else than the face. This is a two-turn, back-to-back lethal. Just
back to back lethal. There's really nothing Kolento can do. He's gonna have to use his Earthen Scales and the Swipe to clean up the board, but that's not gonna be enough to survive. He's gonna hope that he then can play Jade Behemoth to stabilize, pick up a second one off the top, and then play Primordial Drake to stabilize again. But throughout this entire process, the Cleric never once dies. That's one thing to keep in mind. Every single thing that he can do is not gonna lead to that Cleric dying. Welcome to Jade Druid.
Even if it will not die, you know what's even more crazy? StanCifka can still heal it and draw cards.
Sure. And even Faceless Shambler, because why not? We'd like more 14-14s.
Kolento's like thinking, how did I get into this spot? Why am I playing Jade Druid? Explain me, please. Maybe I should have played that aggro deck that I'm complaining so much about. Actually, Purify is pretty decent against aggro decks, so maybe not the best advice for me.
Well, it's actually pretty weak against aggro when they're teching, like playing a normal list. The ones that StanCifka's running is a little bit better, but most of them have now just forsaken the anti-aggro tools. Like they don't play, some of them just don't play Potion of Madness and Shadow Word Pain and Pyros. So those are pretty tough to beat aggro with, but that's gonna be it for this game. Looks like Cifka's anti-aggro list is still gonna take a dump on Jade Druid, as it's supposed to.
You know what's even funnier? You said that with this hand, actually, Kolento has a shot.
He did, except look at the card draw that Cifka got. Drew every card, and then just had a 14-14 on point before Kolento could actually start developing taunt. That was just nuts. It was the two-turn setup that broke the Druid's back, and you know Kolento's Jade Druid again gonna have to go up against. It's gonna have to go up against a matchup it doesn't really want to run up against. Oh man, good luck.
Oh my god! Look at this opening. Inquisitor into a rock, into Hunter, into 10 free Trucifer champion.
Kolento still has the best deck against it though. He's running double Devolve, Lightning Storm, double Maelstrom.
Yeah.
Kolento's Shaman is extremely good against this type of Paladin. I mean, it's better against aggro Paladin. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not an amazing matchup against mid-range Paladin. It's very even. But against aggro and these types of openers, Kolento's deck is particularly strong. On paper.
All right. One hex already available. Something that you're going to always draw it first. That's the nature of the game. Inquisitor is such a hard minion to kill on turn 1 for most of the classes. It's the best minion. I feel like when you have Hunter in your hand, Inquisitor is just the best thing you can draw.
Yeah, it's even harder to kill than the Tidecaller, which a lot of people are referring to as like this god tier Murloc opener. Thing is, without Rock Pool, the Tidecaller doesn't snowball crazily out of control. In aggro Murloc, it's different, but in the mid-range list, that's why a lot of people have been cutting it. It's not as powerful there. Oh, well, that's a welcome draw for Kolento. Does pick up a Firefly. Just gonna give him some board presence if he wants to seek it this turn, for sure.
Alright, well, it's still kind of awkward. You just can't play Firefly. I mean, the trick, by the way.
You could play Firefly and trade.
I forgot the name of the card, and I was like, oh yeah, right, this series that got cancelled.
Tiny Fire Elemental guy. You can call him that if you want. You can just extend the name. I don't know how I mean, playing Firefly seems good because you've got Flame Tongue, Hero Power for turn 4, so you can trade up. But it's pretty bad if the opponent plays... Well, there's no Blessing of Kings in that list, so I think you're okay. I think you're actually okay with it. There's no chance of him just making a huge minion. If he does, you have the Hex. I like that. It sets up a trade on the War Leader with the Flame Tongue if there is a War Leader that comes up.
Instead of that, StanCifka goes for a secret of Gateway Kodo. I like that option, actually.
And honestly, that's going to completely shut down Kolento's line of play. He made those 2 minions hoping that the Flame Tongue Totem would extract value. In this case, though, Kolento has a Jade Lightning, picks up something else to do that isn't just playing a Flame Tongue Totem, will be able to get himself something on the board. Has a decent turn 5 with, Flame Tongue and Hero Power. So he's going to be able to extract, again, value from the board that he has. And then we'll have the Fire Elemental to hopefully swing the game back in his favor. But it's going to be a 3-turn setup, and there's nothing he can immediately play around. Everything is very, very delayed.
And StanCifka now has still a really good opener. He can 10-4 with the coin, because he can go for the Hydrologist this turn as well. So he can go for more Gateway Kodos, Redemptions, or if he gets Redemption, he can actually wait with it. That would be pretty cool. So I would start with the Hydrologist first. See what kind of secret do I have, because that actually tells you what do you want to do in the future turns as well. Let's see what secret is there.
Another Gateway Kodo.
Beautiful.
That's crazy. It's pretty weak usually against Shaman because they can devolve and they can hex. So you have to time it properly. One of the good timings is with Wild Pyromancer where you get it back. So you clean up the board and then you get your Pyro back. It can be extremely strong in those cases.
But that
usually it goes
one spell, right?
Well, it goes Equality, Pyro, Getaway Kodo, so you clean up the board, and then you get your Pyro back afterwards.
Decent.
Or, Consec into Wild Pyro into Kodo, so you deal 3 damage in AoE. It's a longer setup, but usually finds room to be played against Shaman specifically. No Devolve, StanCifka saw, but those are sometimes kept for Spiker Steeds. No, not too much information divulged yet by Kolento.
Yeah, not that much. Like all 3 cards that are being kept on the left side of the hand are being there from turn 1. So the cards that were being played in the game were basically cards that are being top decked every single turn, and that doesn't really give that many informations for StanCifka what's going to happen, right? Because they were mulliganed away. So the Fire Elemental, the Bloodlust, and Hex are just random cards. You can't really get the information out what are there exactly, but you can expect there being either very specific answers or high cost value. I mean high mana cost cards. I'm not really sure if you want to trade the with the Aya at all. I think I can just go push the damage and kill the golem with the Trucifer champion.
I think the trade is fine because you have answers to it immediately. I think it's a pretty decent trade because you've got the initiative this time around as opposed to later. So you're forcing your opponent to have that devolve or to have those AoEs. And Kolento, again, I've spoken to that, but he's running he's running 1 Storm, double Maelstrom, double devolve. Has not found a single one of these 3 cards yet to answer the earlier aggression from Cifka. Maelstrom would not, of course, be ideal, but it's at least something. He's going to be forced to play as Fire Elemental. That's an interesting card, man. So many more 3-drops in the metagame, or 3 health minions that is in the meta, make this card a ton stronger. Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
That draw right there. I thought getting the War Leader back from Getaway Kodo was good, but this Megazord makes it even better. The question is, are there too few Murlocs for it to be worth it? I don't think you can afford to wait. There's Maelstrom Portals, there's Lightning Storms, there's Devolves. Don't you just extract that value now while you still can?
I agree with you. You go for it when you can. In this situation, 3 minions is just enough. Right, because he has 7 mana, right?
I mean, he's gonna get 2 Murlocs buffed up, which isn't crazy good. But it's really forcing Kolento to answer it with everything he's got, and then he has a Tyrion. So if Devolve comes out, that's one less way for you to get that answered. It's tougher than it seems. It's really tougher than it seems. There could be just a good hero power turn to set up an even bigger Megasaur.
Interesting. Well, the Poisonous is a good draw, because now every single minion on the board is actually a threat.
But that Calimos can clean up these guys, and I think Kolento's Pendulum is swinging back on his side now. He's getting the board clear. He's got the Hexes, so Tyrions are not an issue. Even if you generate them with the Stonehill Defender, I have everything I need. Kill the Poisonous. He's got the 3/5 with Divine Shield, which is one of the best minions to play against Paladin by far. It's completely insane. The issue is he's going to need a bit more minion pressure to beat StanCifka. But once he finds it, he's going to be fine.
For Stan, I feel like he doesn't really need to play the Tyrion this turn. But he goes for it anyway. I like that he didn't trade. I like the fact that fact. Because he needs that pressure. He just can't go with the longer game plan, because he knows that the Shamanless at some point will get to draw those hexes and evolves, and his army will shrink, and that most likely will does not be enough damage to finish off the game. Kolento is running Jinjus, right, in his deck. They have to be there.
With the Lightning Storm, I don't recall seeing, the double Jinju. I've seen the Hot Spring Guardians because they're elementals and they fit perfectly. But I'll be honest, I haven't seen the Jinjus. I was going to say here, StanCifka made a super good read that his opponent simply didn't have AoE based on the way the previous turns panned out. And he said, if I play Tyrion and he hexes it, the 7/7 goes into the 0/1 and he has no way to kill my Megasaur. And I should be able to just get the Megasaur to connect once again, setting up, a 2 to 3 turn lethal if I get the right targets. In this case, though, Cifka got answered with a Fire Elemental, which, while it gives him value off of the Pyromancer, still didn't give him the damage that he was hoping to push. Oh, goodness, the other Tyrion's back.
Well, still, there's another Hex for it, right? So, not a biggie. Not a biggie at all. If only Stan would have an option to kill it by himself.
Yeah, if you had enough mana for the Pyromancer equality while playing Tyrion, it would be pretty sick. It would be done a lot more often than it is now. Sometimes you get to do it, but against Shaman, they just never pass over to you.
Oh, there's the Blessing of Kings.
Yeah.
He was so certain that he doesn't play it.
It's kind of rare that you see it in those mid-range lists, but Cifka is definitely more of a brewer. He hybridized a lot of his decks in the past, and this Paladin is no different.
I still remember when he was playing Ironbeak Owl in his Druid list with 2 Keeper of the Groves.
Oh yeah, there was a weird time where people started I think he was playing Spellbreaker even in there at some point.
Oh yeah,
Double Keeper, Spellbreaker. No, but he played like 3 silences and then he switched one for Spellbreaker. Like he kept switching between Ironbeak Owl and Spellbreaker for a while. And it was just like this super silence-heavy Druid, which was just so weird at the time. But if you could just combo people down, it made sense. You dealt with Tide Drakes. At the time, I think it was a pretty interesting tech, and it made sense.
All right, well, this board is getting slightly out of hand. Kolento needs to react, and react will most likely be that Lightning Storm, but paired up with the Devolve guarantees a clear. He can go also just for, guarantees, most likely gives him the clear. He can also go for the 25% air power totem. If he doesn't get it, I don't feel like just playing Lightning Storm. The 50-50 on the War Leader might just bite you back because you have nothing to fall back on.
The problem with that is, as you said, right? Like, if they play something like Buff plus Megasaur, what happens, right? Like, you're...
Well, you still have that one Hex. But the problem is you don't know what's gonna happen with that one card out of the Stonehill Defender because you didn't see it yet.
I might Storm just because I've got the Devolve as a backup. If things go bad next turn, I can probably survive, and then I can Devolve after that. If a Spike Steed comes out, I get even more value from Devolve. So keeping Devolve is better against cards like Steed. It's better against cards like Kings if you don't instantly die. So I prefer it. The Fear, though, might have inclined, the Kolento maybe to play Devolve. But if he's calculating damage and he's thinking he can't die to anything barring like Blessing a King's Megas or Wind Fury, then it might be worth taking the risk. And look at that.
That's a good pickup for Kolento. He needs some roadblocks and some value at the same time, so that looks very promising for Kolento.
So Aldo Peacekeeper says, you don't want Earth Ellie. Tareem says you don't want Earth Ellie, but Alakir is just a gorgeous fellow.
Well, I was talking about the bodyguard, man.
Oh, the triple B, the BBB?
Yeah,
okay.
the BBB.
So wait, Earth Elemental in this spot, I would have gone for Alakir every day. I must be doing something wrong.
I would have picked it as well, so definitely we're both doing something wrong.
We're clearly not on Kolento's level here. He's a few steps ahead of us. I'm guessing he's not trying to extract value from the minion as much as just getting a big roadblock, because he's got no AoE. If he picks up Maelstrom Portal, he's golden, but he needs to find it. Like, he's at that point now where one of the two Maelstrom Portals has to come out just about now. Like, this needs to happen.
Well, StanCifka went all in.
If there's a double devolve, Kolento can make everything on this board a wisp, which he'd be okay with.
I still feel like okay with that devolve, like just a single one. Can actually play.
Well, it's pretty bad against poisonous, right? So you have 2/3 drops that can become the little gastropod, and you've got a 2-drop that can become pit snake.
Well, I don't feel like I can play around it.
But must you devolve? Like, are those Murlocs going to get worse? The only card that makes them worse is the one of Megasaur. Sunkeeper Tareem sometimes makes everything bad anyway, even if you devolve.
Well, if you keep it, what's your play then? You play Elf Elemental and it dies anyway?
I play like Totem, Elemental. So I play like 3 minions on this board.
But your opponent has a 4/4 on the board. That just dies to devolve because it becomes a 0/1 or a 1/1.
Does it though? Because it's 0 mana.
It's 0/1.
No, it's 0 mana. It doesn't get devolved.
Oh my god,
well,
I'm dumb. Yeah,
no, you're not dumb. It's just not something, like, usually people assume it's going to become a 1/1. It's just no one really pays attention to that. I saw the introduction,
I'm just dumb. I completely forgot about it.
Alright, you're dumb then.
Yeah, I'm dumb.
Is that what I have to say? Oh, come on, another Tyrion!
What?
What?
A third Tyrion?
This is ridiculous.
Well, you take it. Your opponent did use 2 hexes and a devolve. And if your opponent devolves a Tyrion, that's still a good deal. I mean, I can understand the other options, but still, it feels like...
I mean, it definitely protects your frog, man. Like, that frog is worth a lot right now. It's the most, like, immediate damage you're pushing, whereas the Tyrion is still vulnerable to the other devolve, whereas the frog never gets devolved and wins the game. Which is kind of amusing.
Yeah, good point, good point.
This frog is so good. You can Spike Steed it, and it's not gonna get devolved. What a frog.
What a hero. Hero frog. Everyone keeps mental note. When you play against a Shaman, you bait out a hex first, and then you play every single buff on that hex.
I mean, it makes so much sense, too, when you're looking at it that way.
Well, I don't know, because it just... I would need to look at the wording, actually. I feel like the wording says something different, but I'm not sure. We'll have to check.
For what? For the devolve?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's supposed to transform everything. If there's... It's like when you try to evolve Deathwing, right? He doesn't evolve.
Well, he should. He's just changed to something that doesn't really evolve further, right?
Well, there's no 13 drop. There's no 10. There's no 11 drop.
Yeah, so it just stays on another 12 drop. In this case.
Okay, so you just transform it into another 10 drop instead of...
Yeah, 12 drop. A 10 drop.
12, something.
Yeah.
All right, we're on a second evolve plan here. If we don't pick it up, we're just doomed. Is there any Maelstrom Portal card
Well,
that comes
there was
out?
a chance actually to devolve into Doomsayer. That was a possibility. Unfortunately,
That was indeed a possibility. You're right. He still lives though, right? He's not dead yet, and he could still get that devolved Doomsayer. A really good one drop here from the Maelstrom Portal.
Man, what a game!
Okay, this is not over.
Finja kind of says it might be over, but the 5/5.
There are no Murlocs left, really. There's like one Murloc.
There has to be at least one.
There's one, I think.
And the Megazord is now. That's ridiculous. You can still get a Wind Fury and a second attack out of the Finja after you trigger it, actually.
I don't even think there's like... Okay, there's two. Sorry, there were exactly two, and these are the ones. There were two Hydrologists that we saw, one Inquisitor, one Rock Pool.
So now we can go with the Frog into the Shieldbearer, into Reynard, sorry, and then you can sacrifice one of the 1/1s, play the Megazord, and see what you get, because you might actually get Wind Fury.
And then Kolento's on a 1 outer, and that 1 outer is very simple. Gotta get that devolve, hit that War Leader, and make it a Doomsayer. If you do that, and only if you do that, you can salvage this. There's a 1 outer in Kolento's deck. And that is not going to be it. Kolento's just down to 0, and is simply going to have to bow down. That Bloodlust, useless this game.
Well, that's what happens with cards like that, right? They require board state, and when you're always behind on the board, you can't really use it. It's like Savage Roar, but even worse, because your hero doesn't get the attack, so you can't even use the hero to just, you know, get like a semi-bad weapon out of it.
That was such a cool series, though. We had the Purified Priest, did its thing. We had the Undevolved Frog, which I think was also a super cool highlight of the matchup. Paladin deck, like, you know, Kolento's Shaman deck is extremely good against aggro Paladin, but the way that the mid-range Paladin lines up against it makes it a more even matchup. And since he didn't find his AoE in the early game, I think that's what cost him really the entire series, because the AoE became a little bit less relevant later. Maelstrom Portal was a bit clunkier, and that means I think Kolento's up to 4 losses. I don't want to lie, but I think he's just out at this point.
Give me a second, I'm gonna check.
If that's the case,
I think you're right. I think you are right, because Kolento is currently with 2 wins and 4 losses, but the situation is very peculiar, because JJ is with 2-3. Kolento is 2-4, Stan is 2-4, Pavel is 2-3, and Joe is 0-7.
Ah, I see.
And everyone else has 5 or 6 wins. So basically, if StanCifka gonna win his last match, Joe is gonna win his last match, then the middle table for the 4th place might dramatically shift.
Depending on head-to-head and who won against whom, we might see like an unexpected... somebody is going to go through at 3-4, potentially, is what we're looking at.
Might be the case. It's not 100%, but might be the case.
Yeah. So we'll be taking a short break, guys, and we'll be back with the 5th match of the day. We've got Super JJ versus Sho coming up. Sho, it's going to be his last match. Then he'll get a permanent break from the league. He is 0-6 right now. Can he put a point on the board? Or is everybody going to... is he just unlucky? Is that what's going to happen? That might happen.
I just think he has a horrible lineup.
Yeah, definitely not working out so far. So don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back. Stay here.